Hello and welcome to the sixth installment of our War and Peace Quarantine Edition 50 pages a day read through. I am Matthew Robinson. Joining me, as always, the wonderful Dimitri Portnoy. How are you, Dimitri?
I'm great, and thank you so much for joining us.
We are going to be discussing pages 250 to 300, and with that, we get to the end of Book 1, the first major punctuation in our storyline. And how are you feeling so far, Dimitri?
I'm engrossed and thrilled. Uh, I'm glad there are three more books to go.
There sure are. We are also 25% through the book, and congratulations to us.
Congratulations, sure.
There was a PBS news story yesterday. We are not the only people doing the 50 pages a day War and Peace challenge, Dimitri. Did you know that?
I did not. It doesn't surprise me.
I'm going to link a video of it on our social media, but PBS was discussing great things to read, and they went to a guy who I think a professor who was doing a War and Peace read through. Do you know how many pages a day they're requesting their readers read, though, Dimitri?
25?
12 pages a day. I mean, come on, guys. This is a pandemic here. Let's pick up the page. 12 pages a day. I mean, if the pandemic lasts that long, we're all in trouble.
Well, to be fair, it's three of those little chapters on average. They're about 4 pages each.
Well, I can't be upset at anybody who's reading War and Peace during this time. But I was shocked. 12 pages a day. I mean,
but how can you hold yourself down to only 12 pages a day? That's the question.
I mean, it'd be done and you'd be finished before you could read it on the toilet. What are we doing here? Come on. Anyway, let us talk about what happened in these 50 pages. Do you want to give us a little bit of a summation, Dimitri?
Sure. It's all war, and we had a major defeat. And two people came to a realization, including a huge change of heart for Andre.
Yeah, huge. And what was that change of heart?
So Andre begins the book with actually the section with a major statement of purpose, a kind of Andre's ambition, which is he wants more than anything in the world to do something magnificent and important and heroic, and to have everybody see it, and then to have Nick Fury come over and say, hey, join the Avengers because you're a superhero now.
Right. He has a superhero level fantasy in his mind of how the war will go for him.
And riding into battle, he actually has a heroic moment where he sees a standard bearer fall, picks up the standard, which is a moment you see in movies all the time and in art, and I've seen in Soviet propaganda, and carries it. And it's too heavy for him, but it doesn't dip. Someone takes it from him and is shot. He picks it up again, and then someone takes it from him and carries it forward. And then somebody bashes him on the head. And when he's bashed on the head, he looks at the sky and has a very Tolstoyan epiphany.
Oh, does that remind us of a Tolstoyan epiphany that happened to someone else in this book?
Sure, that Nikolai Rostov's a little earlier. What's interesting, though, is that it is in a moment of heroic triumph and self-sacrifice rather than in a moment of confusion and running around.
Would you mind if I read that section briefly? I think I'll read anything where Tolstoy talks about the sky. How does that sound?
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
All right. What is it? Am I falling? Are my legs giving way under me? He thought, and fell on his back. He opened his eyes, hoping to see how the fight between the French and the artillerists ended, and wishing to know whether or not the red-haired artillerist had been killed, whether the cannon had been taken or saved. But he did not see anything. There was nothing over him now except the lofty sky, not clear, but still immeasurably lofty, with gray clouds slowly creeping across it. How quiet, calm, and solemn. Not at all like when I was running, thought Prince Andrei. Not not like when we were running, shouting, and fighting, not at all like when the Frenchman and the artillerist, with angry and frightened faces, were pulling at the swab. It's quite different the way the clouds creep across this lofty, infinite sky. How is it I haven't seen this lofty sky before, and how happy I am that I finally come to know it? Yes, everything is empty, everything is a deception, except this infinite sky. There is nothing, nothing except that. But there is not even that. There is nothing except silence, tranquility, and thank God. That sounds to me like nihilism.
It is a little bit, because a passage later on says that life is meaningless and death is meaningless. It is a vision in extremis. It's not something that Tolstoy, I think, agrees with, but it's something that a person fallen on the battlefield, experiencing what could be their last moments of life, might very well feel. Uh, Later on, when he meets Napoleon, when Napoleon reviews the wounded, and Napoleon is actually praising him for his courage. Um, it helps, this realization helps Andre reject that praise, or at least not let that praise affect him psychologically.
Yeah,
Nick
the
Fury
line is
comes,
he heard the
and
man
Andre
who had
says no.
said he heard the man who said these words being addressed as sire, that's Napoleon, but he heard these words as if he were hearing the buzzing of a fly.
That's right.
The greatest hero in his mind, Andre, who in a way idolizes Napoleon now, after seeing the truth of the sky, sees him as no more important than a fly.
It's an interesting, it's nihilism as a weapon,
Hmm.
and nihilism as a shield against delusion, against self-delusion, which is the best use of it. Nihilism and skepticism, and
Sure.
radical skepticism.
And in a way, it is a death. Now, we are left on a cliffhanger of whether or not he is truly dead or not, and I will not spoil the answer of that. But regardless of what happens, this is, this is a death of whoever he used to be.
Yes, Napoleon's doctor says that a person in his condition is not going to survive.
Yeah, right. So, and we'll see. But either way, if dead or alive, this is a symbolic death at least.
Yes, and it would be interesting to see if he does survive, what he ultimately becomes. Because before, he didn't seem to love life exactly.
Yeah,
He didn't seem like Pierre to be into wild parties, or enjoying society, or even enjoying the love of his wife. So I wonder where he's going to go from there, because if he becomes a complete ascetic, which Tolstoy kind of became at the end of his life,
absolutely.
it's hard to imagine him as an interesting character in the novel.
So, speaking of hero worship, let us move on to Nicholas
Oh,
Rostov.
poor Nicholas.
Oh, geez, ridiculous. Do you want to tell us about what happens with sweet Nikolai?
He gets trusted with a message that he can deliver to Kutuzov, or indeed to the sovereign with whom he is in love. Uh, Riding across the front, he gets almost run down by actual soldiers on horses. He sees devastation. He sees the sovereign, the Russian Tsar, the Russian Emperor, standing alone in the field, waiting for
Hmm.
somebody to
This is
come,
his big moment.
and he can't figure out what to say and rides off.
He can't.
And
He gets
Napoleon's
flustered and doesn't kiss the girl.
and somebody else comes over and gets to do that. And Nikolai rides off across a field of dead soldiers, being shot at by cannonballs by Napoleon's troops, who
Yeah.
see an officer alone on a horse, using him for their target practice, and they miss.
Yeah. And he once again has that moment when they're shooting at him and he goes, "How can they be shooting at me? My mommy loves me."
Yes. because it's too good not to repeat.
Yeah.
It's too good not to remind us of that particular part of Nikolai's psychology. But I did read a little bit past the
Mm.
end of the volume,
Hmm.
because page
Yeah,
300 in
as did
our
I. Yeah.
edition. And Nikolai, we do know, does come home to
Hmm.
his adoring, loving, chaotic, warm family.
He gets the hero's
Who,
welcome he did not necessarily earn.
uh, but who does?
That's right.
Andre earned a hero's welcome, and rejected it, at least from Napoleon. He rejected Napoleon's praise.
That's right.
And again, I'm looking forward to seeing, if he survives, how he's going to deal with the praise from his family and friends back
Yeah,
home, if indeed he receives it.
absolutely. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, or shall we just come back tomorrow?
Let's come back tomorrow, because I have some more thoughts about the human comedy of Tolstoy.
Oh,
We didn't see much comedy in these pages. We saw some irony,
yeah.
about people not realizing what's happening, people being unaware, unself-conscious, how young Tolstoy says the Russian emperor actually looks,
Mm.
and how kind of unprepared he is
Yeah.
for what's happening,
Baby
as are
faced,
a
I
lot
think
of
he's
the
almost
soldiers.
described as. Yeah.
Yes, we of course we see him through Nikolai's eyes,
Right.
and of course he looks like a beautiful maiden
Yeah.
through
I
the
always
eyes
I
of
always
someone in
wondered, I
love with
mean,
him.
it's never overtly dealt with at all, as homosexuality never was, but it always felt to me like there was more than just a hero worship going on here and a potential actual, romantic feelings he felt. It's hard to tell the difference, I guess, in a young man like that.
And Tolstoy keeps talking about how young men are tender towards each other,
Hmm.
how they kiss each other, how they hug, and often even how they're awkward around each other in
Yeah.
a way that implies romance.
Yeah.
Now, again, that romance may not be sexual, but it's definitely romantic.
Yeah.
It's uh, and I think Tolstoy and most Russians would actually admit that. In in part, Russian society is so homophobic because they want to possibly hold on to that romance
Mm.
without going all the way,
Hmm.
and possibly disrupting the social order that they're used to.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dimitri. And
Thank you, Matt. Again, it's an amazing journey.
absolutely. We'll see you all tomorrow at page 350. Thank you so much.
See you at page 350.